Hi guys, so before we get into it, a very quick disclaimer that there will be some spoilers today, although I'm not going to reveal what happens in the last 15 minutes or so, because in my judgment, this is a film that not too many people will have seen. Although I saw Catacombs back when it first came out, actually, so this was my second watch, albeit a long time after the first, and coming into this, I remembered the film being sort of good, but with a disappointing ending, although that played a lot better for me this time, leading to overall a very satisfying experience actually. But over time I have been developing more and more love for noughties horror. I'm not sure I fully appreciated that movement at the time that it was happening, but now that we've got a couple of decades of separation from it, I definitely find myself casting an eye back over that era with a lot more reverence and nostalgia. It's a decade of horror that definitely has its own signature for me, way more than the 2 decades that have followed. So a lot of films that came out back then, definitely marketed for young people, starring young people. You get a lot of films then that had a kind of rock music sort of vibe, not just in the sound, but in the way that they were edited and the fast-moving pace of them, the unapologetic violence that was a lot heavier than in the 90s. And a film like Catacombs would absolutely fall into the sort of vibe that I'm describing there, just a very grungy sort of experience. I kind of feel like a true connoisseur of noughties horror would be able to watch a film like Catacombs and be able to guess the year that it came out in, down to within like 2 or 3 years, or at least if I hadn't already given it away on the thumbnail. But anyway, the story of this film, we've got a young American woman who travels to Paris to have a good time with her sister. They go out on the town, but then they are abducted by Algerian gangsters, and it's up to Liam Neeson. No, that's not right, is it? So the story for this involves a young American woman travelling to Paris to have a good time with her sister. They go out on the town, but in order to avoid the attentions of Algerian gangsters, they go to an illegal rave beneath the ground in the catacombs that are underneath the Parisian streets. And this is actually a real place. If you don't know, the catacombs under Paris, it is this huge network of tunnels that go for dozens of miles in all directions. God knows how deep they go. You can actually get guided tours that will take you a little bit of the way in, but most of these tunnels are lost to darkness. You wouldn't want to get stranded down there. You'd probably not find your way out. So as you can imagine, a perfect place for horror. And I've actually seen several movies use this location very well over the years. My personal favourite is As Above, So Below from 2014. Wonderful movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And also Bunker 717 is a pretty good movie as well. And then we come to this one, Catacombs. So to give you a little bit more about the plot, these two sisters go to this underground rave, and the more introverted of the two gets separated from the crowd. So she basically gets lost in the tunnels. So there's a dual threat here. Number one, she could simply get stranded forever and the batteries will run out on her flashlight and that'll be it. She'll starve in the dark. And also, there may be a killer down there, because a lot of the characters very early on in this movie are talking about this local myth, local legend, about this guy who supposedly is down in the tunnels somewhere, and if you get lost, then he might just come along and kill you. So maybe he will pop up in the movie as well. This was directed by a guy called Tomm Coker, and as a little in-joke, a little tribute to him, some of the characters do the Oka-Coka during the underground rave scenes. No, they don't. This guy only directed 2 movies. His first one, I've never heard of it. It doesn't even sound like a horror movie. Then he did this one, and this was his last film as a director. He never did any more after this. So I don't know if he just decided to retire, or maybe he just couldn't get any more films after this. But it's a shame, because this is a half-decent film. The movie genuinely looks like it is taking place in the actual French catacombs, even though most of it was filmed on sets in Romania. But you will probably be fooled while you're watching this. And what helps sell the deception is the fact that a lot of the earlier scenes above ground were filmed in Paris. Plus they used a lot of French extras for this, a lot of French actors to play the smaller roles. The sets that they used in Romania are pretty fab. I mean, they're fairly simple in design, and you can tell that they've reused them at certain points throughout the movie, but from different angles, or just had a lot of the characters retrace their steps to get into the same parts of the catacombs, but whatever. But there's lots of uses of skulls and bones in the walls, and the main rave room, which is used quite a bit in the movie, looks terrific. Like, I've never been to an illegal rave in my life, but I would go to this illegal rave if I had the chance, even at the risk of spending the night in a French jail cell. The two main actresses in this have interesting backgrounds. So the two girls who play the sisters, the one who plays the more extroverted of the sisters is actually the singer Pink. Now, I don't listen to her music, and in fact I didn't even recognise her during this film. It was only afterwards, when I was looking into the history of the film, that I realised that she was in this, and it was kind of like, whoa, that was Pink then. I guess she's not actually credited as that. She's got a stage name that she uses for acting, Alecia something, but it's definitely her. So I guess she dabbles in acting when she's not recording albums, and she's kind of all right in this, I suppose. The other actress who's playing the other sister is Shannyn Sossamon, something like that. She's a girl who, once upon a time, starred alongside Josh Hartnett in 40 Days and 40 Nights, one of the very few comedy films I've actually seen. She would go on to do Sinister 2. I guess she's had an okay career, even though most people won't have heard of her. But she has a musical background as well. She was in a band called Warpaint. She was a drummer, and she actually recorded an EP with the band, but then she left to do acting full time. But the band carried on without her and went on to record 4 albums. But both the main actresses in this film have a background in music, and it kind of just goes back to what I was saying earlier about noughties horror, having a kind of spiritual connection with music. I'm definitely onto something with this. I'm going to write a dissertation on this subject. Maybe I'll win the Nobel Prize or something. No, not that. Maybe the Pulitzer Prize. Who knows? Anywho, this is pretty gripping for the most part. This film definitely achieves most of the things that it sets out to do. There's definitely an emphasis on atmosphere over kills, but that would be my preference anyway. I would have liked a bit more in terms of cramped spaces and tighter passageways, adding to the claustrophobia. This is something that As Above, So Below did extremely well, but here sometimes it does feel like the characters have the freedom to run around the corridors because there's just lots of space, but it's only a small nitpick. When it comes to the killer, I'm kind of hit and miss. The design of him is a little bit bland, and when the characters are discussing the legend of him early on in the film, I was kind of half asleep. I was like, it's not the most thrilling of backstories. I was like, yeah, just get on with the movie. We don't really need this. On the positive side, though, the killer is used quite sparingly throughout the film, and this is something that impressed me. He's not constantly turning up every 2 minutes like Mr. X in Resident Evil 2. The use of him is quite sparing, and I thought that was quite clever because it just allowed the atmosphere to slowly build. There's whole stretches of this movie where the killer is just nowhere to be seen, but I liked that. It's a pretty cool thing about this. The ending will definitely divide opinion. It's even managed to divide me straight down the middle because, like I said earlier, I didn't really like it the first time I watched the film. This time it was a lot better for some reason. It's a strange way to end a film, though. At least it's different, I suppose. It's kind of equal parts tragic and funny what you get at the end of this, but you just have to see how you get on with it. There is one more negative that I feel like I've got to declare before I wrap up, and that is the complete lack of logic in one of the rave scenes. So at one point, the main girl manages to get back into the rave long after the horror has started, and I'm kind of thinking at this point, well, the film should be over at this juncture because she can just hang out among the crowd and, strength in numbers, etc. But then the police turn up and everybody tries to get back up to ground level, and this girl just happens to knock herself unconscious on a wall as everybody's heading out up to the street. And I just don't really buy that would happen. And I also don't buy that the police would seal this place off and just leave an unconscious woman lying in the corridor. Even my wife commented on this. This was one of the rare occasions that my wife actually watches a horror movie with me. I don't know what got into her the other night. But yeah, even she mentioned this. She just said it didn't really make any logical sense. So this is the one scene in the movie that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb as being a bit of a negative. I think they needed to find some other solution as to how this girl ends up stuck in the rave room alone, but I'm not going to dwell on it too much. For the most part, this is still an excellent film and highly recommended. Right, we've reached that point where I go to the bag of terror and we find out how I am going to score Catacombs. Let's see what we've got in the bag today. We've got 1, 2, 3... 4 Michael Myers carving knives out of 5. Yeah, I really like this. If I'd have done the review after my first watch way back in the day, I might have been a lot harsher and just given it 3, maybe. But I really enjoyed it this time. This is genuinely a good underground horror film. It's not as good as Above, So Below, which I would absolutely give a 5 out of 5 to, but I've already reviewed that one in the past. This one, yeah, top notch, had a good time with it, so there we are. Right, we'll wrap it up for today. I'll be back very soon to do another review. Until then, cheerio, bye-bye.